Hey, hello everyone. My name is Alisa. I will be teaching about Japanese art. So today we will be having a promo workshop where we'll just have a quick look into what we'll learn about in all the following classes, but it's just going to be quick and easy, not too many details. Um, yeah, so I'm doing this workshop in collaboration with Sunny Events and Arts. I'll have our contact information at the end, but you can also check out their website for more information on these workshops. And yeah, once again, my name is Alisa. I'm a 20-year-old artist. I've been drawing and learning about art my whole life. Um, so yeah, if you could please just unmute yourself and introduce yourself to us. Just quickly say like what your name is. You can state your age if you want to, and if you could say why you joined these classes, like if you just enjoy drawing in general, or if you wanted to learn more about the history of Japan and Japanese art. Um, yeah, that would be very nice.
Um, I'm Leia and I just like to draw and I'm 13.
I'm Sophie. I'm 9 years old, and I also like to draw.
Okay, thanks guys. Perfect. Okay, and then we'll see if more people join, then they can just introduce themselves later. But all right, then we will begin with our introductory class for today. Um so since we will be learning about the art of Japan, I was wondering if you guys knew anything about Japan at all, like any facts that you might know. If you can just unmute yourself and like I don't know, say throw them in there out there.
They're from Japan.
We don't really know much about Japan, but our cousins are from Japan.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
But yeah,
Do you guys know what the Japanese flag looks like or what the capital of Japan is?
Nope.
no.
Okay, well then I guess you guys will learn today. So, here I have a map of Japan. This little island over here, or I guess it's an archipelago. So it's like a bunch of islands is Japan. So, this is the flag that I included over here, the flag of Japan, and these are just some basic facts that I've listed over here. So, Japan is located in East Asia, so it's on the continent of Asia in the east, right? And it's located in the Pacific Ocean. So some, I guess, key facts and statistics is that it consists of four major islands and over 14,000 of smaller islands. So it's like an archipelago, as I've said. Um, so its size is like almost 400 square kilometers, 400,000 square kilometers, sorry. And its population as of 2025 is over 123 million people, which actually makes it one of the most populated countries in the world. I think it's at like the ninth place of being the most populated in the world, which is kind of crazy because you can see like how small it is, right? But still. And actually, the capital city of Japan is Tokyo. Now, some facts about the culture of Japan. So, historians believe that Japan originated as a country in either 4th or 5th centuries of the Common Era. But in Japan, there is like I guess a mythology, like a legend, a mythical legend that um, Japan actually originated in the year 660 before the Common Era. But once again, it's more of a myth. And even though a lot of Japanese people still believe it to be true and celebrate like that as the origin of Japan, historians kind of believe otherwise. So there's like two truths to it. And also, an interesting fact is that early Japan took a lot of influences from Chinese culture because Chinese culture is older than Japanese culture. And we will see more of that in our later classes. We won't look too much into it today, but that's just an interesting fact. Okay, so that was just some quick little facts about Japan. Now a little bit more about what we will be doing in these classes. So I included a little timeline over here. So this will be a series of 5 classes, and we will be beginning with the Edo period, which we will be looking at today very quickly. And then I guess we'll take a closer look and a more detailed look at it during our next class. So we will be starting off with the 17th century, which is when Edo period began. And then for our next class, we will be looking at the Meiji period, which is also known as the Meiji Restoration period, then the Taisho period. And after all of that, we can see how the classes go, how much we cover. But I'm planning to focus the last 2 classes on modern Japanese art. So that includes the mid 20th century and now the 21st century. Okay, so the first thing that I want us to do today is I want you guys to take a look at these 2 artworks, which one of them is a traditional Japanese print created during the Edo period, and this is a traditional European Western painting. So they were both created at around the same time, so it's like 17th, 18th century, right? And I want you guys to just compare these 2 and maybe again unmute yourself and just say what are some differences that you notice between the 2. So once again, just to give you the framework, these were painted at around the same time, yet they obviously look very different, right? So I want you guys to just say like what differences you notice.
The Japanese one, it's more realistic and there's more like solid colors.
Perfect. Do you see any other differences maybe?
There's more patterns on the Japanese one.
Perfect. There's more patterns. I don't know if you guys would know, but this kind of looks like a religious painting. It looks like a Christian painting because this looks more like Jesus Christ, right? Well, this painting, it doesn't have any like religious subtext, right? That's another cool detail. Do you notice anything else maybe between the 2 paintings that's different?
On the Japanese one, there's like words written, I think, on the back.
Yes, so that's a great detail that you noticed because that's actually a major difference because European paintings and Western paintings, for the most part, never really had any texts written on them, no words. But in Japanese tradition, it was actually very, very common to include a lot of these like kind of words or like signatures even, and a lot of text, which yeah, it's a small detail, but it's great that you noticed that. Okay, yeah, so you guys pretty much named, I guess, a lot of things. Another thing that I would personally also say is that you can kind of tell like the difference between the clothing, right? So this one kind of depicts a more of a traditional Japanese outfit, so it's like a yukata or kimono. You can also see the fan over here and some traditional hair pieces. While here it's more of like a traditional it's not even like the fashion of the European fashion of the time because this is more of like a religious painting. So once again, it's more of a even like a um prehistoric clothes that it depicts. But yeah. So thank you guys. You did a great job. You listed a lot of things. Perfect. So it just shows you like a little bit of an introduction of what Japanese art looked like at the time, right? And now I'm just gonna do a quick little introduction of the Edo period. Overall, I'm not going to go into too much detail. We will take a closer look at the other interesting facts about this period in our next class, since this is just like an introductory one today. But just so you guys know what we're learning about and what we're looking at and what kind of framework we're looking at. So the Edo period is believed to have begun in the 1603, in the year 1603, and ended in 1868, which is, I think, um maybe not the long like we're not going to look at the whole history of Japan, but from the time periods that we will be looking at, this is the longest one. So it lasted for over 250 years, which is a long time, I think. And the reason why it's named the Edo period is actually because it's named after the main city of this time, which is the Edo city, or it also had a port, which was pretty important, right, where the boats and the ships were. And actually, now the Edo city is called Tokyo, and it's actually the capital of modern Japan. So it was renamed afterwards. So this era is kind of defined by an overall peace because Japan was pretty closed off at this time. So it didn't really allow its citizens to travel abroad, and it didn't really have any foreigners coming into the country. There wasn't really much of a foreign trade happening either. So, um, you know, Japan didn't really participate in any wars or any conflicts at the time. Everything that was happening was mostly internal. So that's why there was an overall peace for all these 200 plus years. During this time, the rulers were called the Tokugawa shogunate, which was basically a military, or if you will, a samurai group that was in charge, that was the government. And the leader of this military group was called the shogun, which is the person who is depicted here. That's actually the first shogun, or the first leader of the Tokugawa shogunate. Um, and this is actually an important detail because a lot of art at the time, at least in the early 17th, 18th century, depicted a lot of these political figures and focused a lot on like depicting political scenes, or more, I guess, it just didn't have as much freedom, artistic freedom. Now, at this time, there was also an imperial court, which means that there was an emperor as well. But he didn't hold much power. He was mostly there for just tradition and for the looks of it. Not really, he didn't really make any important details. I mean, any important decisions for the country. And there was also a very strict social order. So once again, no traveling, no foreigners, stuff like that. Or at least not that many of them. Was like a very, very small amount, and it was very hard to get in and out of the country. And within this strict social order, there was the four-tiered social hierarchy, which is called the Shi no Kosho. So Shi basically stands for samurais and warriors, which is also the same Tokugawa shogunate, which were at the top. Then there were underneath them in the hierarchy were the No, which were the farmers. Then the Ko, which were artisans, or like people doing art, any form of art. And then in the last place in hierarchy were the Sho, which were merchants, people selling stuff. Okay, so that was just a quick little introduction of the Edo period. Once again, we will take a closer look at it later on throughout the classes. Now, I would like us to draw this print, which I don't know, have you guys seen it before?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so it's a very, very well-known print. Um, and I will talk about it in a little bit more detail. Like I'll kind of explain what this print is, where it came from, but we will also begin to draw now. So, we will be doing this print in pencil. We will be sketching in pencil and then coloring it in also in pencil. But later on, you can, if you don't finish it today, you can finish it on your own time. And you can also do like a full on, like a good copy, I guess, of this painting later on your own time, where you can use any type of style. Like you don't have to copy it the exact same way. You could just paint it with any material that you want. You can make it into a collage. You can make it. You can draw it with watercolor paints, with acrylic paints, whatever, with markers. It's just interesting to see how different people view and how different people would draw this. But okay, let me just unmute, I mean not unmute, turn on my camera. And we will begin to draw. So, I'm not sure if you guys are using a sketchbook or just like a regular piece of paper, but I recommend you to draw, like to make the drawing bigger. So don't make it too small. Like you want to make it into an actual illustration, right? And so one thing that I want you to focus on is the composition, right? So what is the main focus of this artwork? What would you guys say is the main focus? It's the wave, right? So the wave is like the main thing that we're looking at here. So, something about this wave is that it's the central focus of the painting or the print, and it focuses on movement and it creates a very dynamic composition. So we will begin by sketching. Actually, I'm not, no, I can't turn my phone horizontally, unfortunately, but we will begin by sketching the lines, right? So the overall direction of the wave that we see. So, and we should remember that since this is water and this is a wave, it's going to be very fluid. It's going to be very curvy, right? We shouldn't be using straight lines or like edges and corners, right? We want to be using circular motions to kind of sketch this wave. And we don't have to copy the exact, like, we don't have to replicate it in the same exact way. Just, we want to get the overall idea down, okay? Okay, so we have the wave here, and then right, and then we can see a lot of these kind of water splashes, right? So, the artist, whose name is actually Hokusai, he created this print, this print of a wave, as a part of his like artistic series. So he did a bunch of prints that were called the 36 depictions of the 36 views of Mount Fuji, which I don't know if you guys have you heard of Mount Fuji, or is it like something completely new?
We heard it.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So Mount Fuji, um, it's a sacred mount in Japan, right? And it's one of the symbols, um, of Japan as well. And so, because this is actually a painting from the later Edo period, this is when the country was kind of moving towards opening up its borders to foreigners and to foreign trade. So, a lot of artists created these kinds of prints or series of prints where they basically depicted the main, well, not tourist attractions because those didn't really exist yet, but just main places in Japan to kind of something that they would want to show other people who know nothing about Japan, right? And Mount Fuji, obviously, being one of the main symbols of Japan, is something they wanted to show off the most. So, in this print, if you actually take a closer look, there isn't just the wave, which apparently not a lot of people notice. They think that it's just the print of a wave, but there are actually also boats, right over here, boats with people, so these are like fishermen boats. And in the very back, there is the Mount Fuji itself, which is an important detail. Um, and basically, the symbolism in this painting is that it's uh like basically depicting the nature's power and the fragility of human life, because these fishermen are kind of depicted struggling and fighting against the current and the wave, um, while also depicting stability. So it just basically, these kinds of paintings at the end of the Edo period were more poetic, right? Less political. They were just thinking more about the meaning of life, the meaning of the purpose of humans in this world, the meaning of everything around them. So this painting is kind of meant to show how, the power of nature against the fragility of the human life against stability, because Mount Fuji here represents stability. So that's a pretty cool detail that I'm not sure a lot of people would know, because a lot of the time people just think, oh, it's just like a pretty image with no really like any thought behind it, but that's actually not the case. Okay. And so we're just going to be drawing right? All these waves, once again, remembering to make curvy lines, right? No straight lines. And you want to make your sketch a little bit lighter, right? I'm making mine kind of dark so you guys can see better because I don't know if the camera quality is um good enough, and I don't want to make it too light because it won't be visible on camera. But since we will be covering this, we will be coloring it in with pencils later on. We don't want to make the sketch too dark so it doesn't go through the coloring layer. Okay, and then another thing, like I'll just be drawing as I'm telling you a little bit more about this print. So an interesting detail, and we will also take a closer look at it later. Um, so this is actually not really just like drawn on a piece of paper. This was originally a woodblock print, which is a traditional Japanese painting technique. And the way it was done is that they would literally grab a like a wood block, like a piece of wood, and they would carve out a design with like a knife or special instruments on that piece of wood, and then they would press it against a piece of paper, and it was a whole process. Um, so it was a little bit, it would be a little bit difficult to display this nowadays because I guess it's kind of hard to preserve wood, and because this was basically made as like a template, and then with this template they would then produce more prints, right? And so now you can find the prints, the copies of this original design, but not like the original woodblock. I don't think anyone has it. But either way, the copies and the replicas of this print are now being displayed in the Institute of Chicago, as well as the Hokusai Museum in Tokyo. So in case you're ever in Tokyo or in Chicago, you can go and see this print in person there. um, Another interesting fact is that this print actually sold, well, one of the copies of this print sold for almost $3 million, which is pretty crazy to me as well. Like that's a big, big sum of money, and also just shows you how influential this work has been. Um, right. And another thing, actually, speaking about the influence of this work, so it actually like influenced a lot of um artworks, both Japanese and international. So even now, if you look at some Japanese, like modern Japanese art, or um like even stuff like animations or anything, you could sometimes see like designs similar to this wave. So it had a lot of cultural influence. And also, if you look at certain, not just this painting and not this print, but many other prints as well, um they actually inspired a lot of Western artists as well. So, for example, artists like Van Gogh were very, very inspired by Japanese prints. And even with this wave as well, um, if you look at the painting, Van Gogh's painting Starry Night, which is one of his most famous paintings, you can see that the design in the background, like the design of the sky in the background, is very similar to the design of this wave. Like the way it curves is very similar to the way Hokusai painted this wave. So once again, a lot of influence. Um, And yeah, that's pretty much like some of the main facts about this painting. You can see here on the side the text, which is, yeah, another thing that we talked about earlier in this class, right? So you can see the text here as well. So this text is basically it's the signature of the artist Hokusai, and also the title stating that it's part of the art series that he was doing at the time. Okay, so mm, we can basically just keep sketching Not forgetting any details. You don't have to make it like super, super detailed. Like you don't have to draw every single line, especially here in the well, it's kind of like I guess the foam on the sea or like the ocean, right? You don't have to draw every single little curve, but you can just get like the overall idea, the overall shape of it, and kind of try to understand the process of it, right? So once again, we're using curvy lines everywhere, and we're just making them small, more rounder, and more small in comparison to the curves that we were using for the wave itself. Okay. And then we have to remember to draw the boats because once again, they're a very important detail of this painting or of this print. It's not really a painting. And at the time, Japanese artists would use a lot of like um materials that I guess we don't really use today. So I guess the most similar material that we could use for painting this would be watercolor, because at the time they used a lot of like natural pigments and natural paints and maybe even like ink, um, right? Which was pretty like watery as well, just like watercolor. So I guess if you wanted to paint this with paints, I would recommend using um watercolor. And I think it would also kind of have a similar vibe because these Japanese prints, like if you've noticed, they have a lot of lighter, softer tones, right? So they don't really use bright or neon colors. And I think watercolor, because it is so translucent and light, it would kind of get that idea down pretty well, I think. Okay, so as we're drawing the boats, I'm not sure if you guys wanna maybe if you wanna talk, like if you wanna say anything like about Japan, maybe if you wanna share something, or if you want me to play some maybe music, like traditional Japanese music that was um that was popular at the time. I could also play that while we're drawing in the background because um there's not much here because I mean if we were drawing a person, I think I could, we would obviously I would explain how to do the traditional sketch, but here you basically there's not too many details that I feel like you need help with. Unless like if you do, you can ask me. I'll of course try to explain. But other than that, yeah, we're just
I have a
drawing.
question.
Yes.
Are the boats like drowning, and what are those blue things at the end?
Blue things, you mean these? Like at the end of the boat?
Yeah.
Oh, so okay. So those are actually people. Those are the fishermen.
Are
Um,
they like lying down?
yeah, they're lying down because basically this is like a storm, right? So it's supposed to represent a storm. Um, and then these are the fishermen boats, and I guess they're not like maybe fully drowning, but he did want to show them like, kind of being a little bit submerged in water. They were just like not very big. Like they're not like ships. They were more like smaller fisherman boats, if you could imagine a fisherman boat. Um so they're partially in water, but they're not like fully drowning. Um and yeah, I guess the people they're kind of laying down because they're like struggling to fight against the storm. But yeah. I mean, it does look, it can look pretty confusing because this painting it's not monochrome. It uses several colors, but all the colors are pretty the same. Like it's literally like what, like three different colors, like white, different shades of blue, and like this beige color, right? So I can understand why it kind of looks confusing. A lot of people don't even notice the boats and the fishermen. Like honestly, some people like know this painting and they don't even know that it depicts all these other things other than the wave. But yeah. Uh so yeah, I can't remember the name of these boats because they also have like what they're called in Japanese. They have a whole separate name, but I can't remember now. But yeah, so they're pretty light. Like they're not gonna be big like a proper ship or something.
Okay.
Okay. And then uh once we have our sketch down, right? If you think you're finished, you can start coloring it in. So, as I said, this painting doesn't use that many colors, and we should really think about what colors we want to use, right? And another important detail too that you maybe want to do before, well, it depends on because different artists do it like, in their own way, but um if you take a closer look, there's also like a very thin outline, right? Around each element. So around the Mount Fuji, around the boats, the people, the waves themselves, right? So that's actually an important detail because outlines are very often used in Japanese art, which I guess kind of is a part of the reason why it like it creates such a big difference between Western art, because in Western art they used paints and they try to make it look more realistic, whereas the outline kind of would make it look more, I guess, not cartoonish because that didn't really exist at the time, but it makes it look less realistic, right? Because in real life people don't have outlines around them or any objects. But in Japan, they didn't really care that much about realism. They just cared about like they had their own style, their own technique. And yeah, and so they would use these outlines for all of these prints. And that's an important detail that we also want to include while drawing this. Okay. And then yeah, so once you're done, you can start coloring it in. I think I'm gonna do the outline first and then color it, but you can also color it in first and then do the outline at the end. Depends. And also an important thing about this outline is that it's not just black. So the artists in these Japanese prints, it also depends, of course, on the artist. But here, Hokusai tried to match like the color of the outline to the overall tones that he used in the painting. So he made a dark blue to match the wave because I feel like black would stand out too much, right? And it wouldn't really blend in with the painting, like with the print itself. Um, so when you're doing the outline, remember to use a darker blue. You can also use a marker, like you don't have to use a pencil for it. I think I'll use like a marker or yeah, something like that. Um, Let me see where my markers are. Here. Oops. I accidentally switched the slide. Oh, you can even use like a blue pen if you wanted to, if you don't have a marker or something for it. I think I will use if I have a blue liner. And then maybe while we're working, I don't know, would you guys want me to play some music, like traditional Japanese music, or is that too distracting?
It's fine.
Okay, so let me exit the presentation for a little bit and then here. Wait, sorry, I forgot that I'm sharing without sound as always. Let me just redo that. So I'm going to share with sound so you guys can actually hear. Okay, so we're pretty much out of time, but here, here's an example of what I did, right? So I did the sketch and then I did the blue outline of all the details. I didn't do too many like I don't want you to do like every single little curve. Like I don't want you to copy every single little small detail, right? But like just get the overall shape and the overall design, right? But even here you can tell that I kind of simplified a lot of these lines anyway because you can kind of adjust it when you're coloring it, right? And I want you to start with like um a lighter tone since we are using pencils. I want you to start with a lighter tone and then like so, right? So start coloring it in. And I basically want you to match it to the lightest tone that you see on the painting. So if you think that this is still too light, you can make it darker. And then you will build upon it and you'll just shade in, like, for example, these details in the wave that we see, right? There's certain details that are darker, so we'll just do the darker layer on top of the lighter layer. And if you still think that maybe this is too light, you can take a darker shade, but also, you don't have to make it like, again, you can kind of make this your own. You don't have to copy the exact same way. Like even the coloring, like it makes sense that you might not match every color perfectly, right? So I kind of want you to experiment and take different shades, different colors that you think would look good and just try to replicate the shading technique and the coloring technique that you see, right? So in Japanese art, in comparison to again like European whatever art that I guess we're used to, they didn't really use any blending technique, right? Like everything was very straightforward. All the shading, it didn't blend into the highlights, right? It was just its own separate shape kind of in the painting or the print. So that's like an important detail and idea to also keep in mind while you're doing that. And so when you're doing this like shading of the wave, you basically just divide the space into lines and shapes and you don't really blend them into each other like so. So I do a lighter layer and then I literally just do a strip on top of it of a darker layer, which will be the shadow. like so, right? So that's how he kind of creates that effect of light and shadow. For the boats, however, there's actually no shading on the boats at all. Um, it's literally like just one color or one or two colors, but each color kind of represents just separate parts of the boat. So you can kind of grab this beige, I guess, color. And actually, first I'm gonna erase all the extra pencil lines that I have here, right? So it won't be visible through my color pencil. Like so. And then I can just grab this kind of beige, orangey, whatever color and paint it in. And I don't even have to worry about the shading. Right. Maybe if you think this is not the right color, you can add different tones. So for example, for me, I think I could add a bit more yellow, or I could erase it a little bit and make it a little bit more orangey. Right. But again, I can make it my own. I don't have to copy it the exact same way that I see it. And then once again, since this painting does not use too many colors, like it uses a very limited amount of colors, I would just add more. I would add the same colors to the background. Okay, so that's basically it for today. You can finish this on your own time later. We can just all now share what each one of us drew, right? Even if you're not finished, that's okay. We can just all share and you can finish it on your own time later and send it into the into our chat. But yeah, so basically that's what I have so far, right? I did the sketch, the outline, and I began coloring. So you can all just, I guess, turn on your cameras and show what you guys drew. And then I can turn off my camera so we can see your guys' works better. And I can stop sharing. Okay, so who wants to share first?
We can.
Perfect. Let's see.
So first you got hers.
Wow. Okay, beautiful. I love the shape of it. Wait, 1 second. Let me not talk so I can see your work better. Great. I love it. Okay, so the boats, the shapes, everything looks great. Oh, you even got the outline. That's right. Okay, perfect. So that was who? That was Sophia?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. And Leah's?
And then I got mine.
Oh, okay. Great. Okay, so you also did the outline. You began the coloring. Perfect. And you got the overall shape. The direction of the wave. I love it. Okay. Perfect. And then I think Nina joined, but she joined later. So
Oh, hi. I didn't draw today.
okay, that's okay.
I
That's
just
okay.
share.
No worries. Okay, so I guess then that's pretty much it for today. I can also here share quickly the last slide. So that's pretty much it for today. We will continue with more details in our next classes. This is our contact information here. Yeah, in case you guys have any questions or suggestions, you can also let me know. Yeah, and then I guess I'll see you in the next classes. You can just finish this print that we did today and once again share it in the chat when you're done. And if there's no questions, then thank you guys for coming and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.